The wound I never healed from. The dinner table. The dining room glowed like a magazine spread. Crystal chandeliers reflected softly on the marble floor. Gold-rimmed plates sat perfectly aligned on the long ebony table. A private chef moved silently in the background, plating food that smelled of truffle oil and slow-roasted lamb. Everything about the house whispered money, legacy, and control. Everything, except peace. Malcolm Hayes sat stiffly at the table, his spine straight, hands folded neatly on his lap. Beside him sat his wife, Ariana, elegant in a cream silk dress, her posture calm but her eyes alert. She had learned, over the years, to read rooms before they turned hostile. Across from them sat Malcolm's parents. His father, Leonard Hayes, wore his wealth like armor, custom suit, diamond cufflinks, an expression that never softened. His mother, Veronica Hayes, sat beside him, lips tight, eyes sharp, fingers tapping slowly against her plate. Dinner had barely begun. "So," Veronica said at last, her voice slicing through the polite silence, "this is what you chose." Malcolm's jaw tightened. "Ariana is my wife," he replied evenly. "Yes, this is who I chose." Veronica smiled, but it wasn't warm. She glanced at Ariana from head to toe. "Interesting choice." Ariana kept her smile polite. She had been raised better than to respond to bait. She lifted her fork carefully, cutting into her food with grace. That's when it happened. Without warning, Veronica picked up her plate. Malcolm barely had time to turn his head. The plate tilted. Food flew. Sauce, rice, meat, splattering across Ariana's dress, her hair, the table, the floor. Time stopped. The sound of porcelain clattering echoed like a gunshot. Ariana froze, shock paralyzing her body. The room went silent except for the faint hum of the chandelier. Veronica stood. "You eat when I say you eat," she snapped. "Not before you're acknowledged." Malcolm shot up from his chair. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he shouted. But Veronica wasn't looking at him. She stared at Ariana. "Clean yourself," she said coldly. "I don't tolerate disrespect at my table. Not from strangers." Ariana's hands trembled. Not because of the mess, but because she had just been reduced. Not as a woman. Not as a wife. But as something thrown scraps at, something less than human. Malcolm's heart broke in a way he didn't yet understand. This wasn't just a dinner. This was the beginning of a wound that would never fully heal. The car ride home was too quiet. Not the peaceful kind of quiet. This was heavy, suffocating silence. The kind that pressed against Malcolm's chest until breathing felt like work. The city lights of Atlanta blurred past the windows, luxury towers glowing like nothing had happened. Ariana stared straight ahead. She hadn't cried. That scared him more than tears ever could. Her dress lay folded on her lap, stained beyond saving. She had insisted on changing in the guest bathroom before they left, scrubbing her skin as if humiliation could be washed away with soap and water. Malcolm gripped the steering wheel. "I should have stopped her," he said finally, his voice breaking the silence. "I should have." Ariana lifted her hand. "Please," she said softly. "Not right now." That hurt worse. She wasn't angry. She was tired. The woman beside him, the woman who laughed loudly in private, who danced barefoot in their kitchen, had gone quiet. Withdrawn. Like someone retreating inward for safety. Malcolm swallowed hard. "I didn't know she would do that," he said. "I swear to you, I didn't." Ariana nodded, still looking forward. "I believe you," she replied. Her calmness unsettled him. "But believing you," she continued, "doesn't change what happened." They drove the rest of the way in silence. When they reached their penthouse, Ariana stepped out of the car without waiting for him. Malcolm watched her walk ahead, shoulders straight, head high, dignity intact. But something invisible had cracked, and he felt it. Later that night, Malcolm stood alone on the balcony, city wind brushing against his face. His phone buzzed. His father. Leonard Hayes didn't waste time with greetings. You embarrassed your mother tonight. Malcolm laughed bitterly. She threw food at my wife. She corrected her, Leonard snapped. A woman needs to know her place in this family. Malcolm felt something snap. There is no family, he said coldly, that treats my wife like an animal. Leonard scoffed. You think marriage makes you a man now? Silence. You chose her, Leonard continued. So you choose the consequences. Don't expect us to bow to your mistakes. Malcolm ended the call without another word. He stood there shaking. Not from anger. From realization. Blood didn't always mean safety. And loyalty, he was learning, often came with conditions. 2 days passed. Ariana moved through the apartment like a guest instead of a partner. She cooked less. Spoke softly. Slept facing the edge of the bed. On the third night, she finally spoke. Malcolm. He turned toward her instantly. Yes. She hesitated. Did I do something wrong? His heart dropped. No, he said firmly. Never. She swallowed. Then why does your mother hate me? There it was. Not anger. Not accusation. Just hurt. Malcolm sat up, reaching for her hands. She doesn't hate you, he lied poorly. Ariana gently pulled her hands away. Please don't protect them from the truth, she said. I can survive honesty. I can't survive confusion. Tears finally slipped down her cheeks. I've never had food thrown at me before, she whispered. Not even when I had nothing. Malcolm felt useless. For the first time in his life, money couldn't fix anything. Malcolm had always believed silence was strength. Growing up wealthy taught him that confrontation was messy, and messy things were hidden. Problems were managed quietly, behind closed doors. But now, silence felt like betrayal. Every time he replayed that moment, the plate lifting, the food flying, he realized something painful. His mother didn't just disrespect Ariana. She tested him. And for one brief second, he had frozen. That hesitation would haunt him. Because wounds inflicted by strangers heal faster than wounds caused by family. And wounds witnessed by the one who promised to protect you, those are the deepest. Days passed, then weeks. No call. No message. No apology. Veronica Hayes moved on as if nothing had happened. Her social media bloomed with charity galas, brunch photos, and captions about family values. Leonard attended board meetings and fundraisers, shaking hands and laughing with men who admired his legacy. At home, Ariana folded herself smaller. She stopped wearing certain dresses, the ones she'd worn to that dinner. She laughed less. When Malcolm suggested visiting friends, she often declined, claiming she was tired. She wasn't tired. She was guarding herself. Malcolm waited for his parents to reach out. He told himself they needed time. He told himself pride made apologies difficult. But deep down, he knew the truth. They didn't think they'd done anything wrong. One evening, he called his mother. "Mom," he said carefully, "what you did hurt Ariana." Veronica sighed, dramatic and bored. "She's too sensitive. You threw food at her." "She disrespected me by existing where she wasn't invited," Veronica replied. "And if you keep defending her, Malcolm, you'll lose your place in this family." Malcolm hung up shaking. The apology never came. Instead, a warning did. At a luxury fundraiser weeks later, Malcolm and Ariana appeared together. Perfect. She wore a black gown. He wore confidence. Cameras flashed. Friends complimented their elegance. Veronica hugged Ariana in front of everyone. "So good to see you," she said sweetly. Ariana stiffened. Malcolm watched closely. The hug was tight, not loving, but controlling. A reminder. Later that night, Ariana stood in the bathroom staring at her reflection. She smiled like nothing happened, Ariana said quietly when Malcolm joined her. "Like I imagined it." "You didn't," he said immediately. "I know," she replied. But that's how gaslighting works, right? Malcolm had no answer, because he saw it too. The cruelty was private. The charm was public. And that made Ariana feel crazy for still hurting. Love doesn't usually break loudly. It shrinks. Malcolm noticed it in the little things. Ariana stopped correcting him when he forgot small details. She stopped arguing when he suggested family events. She stopped asking questions about his parents. One night, she said something that froze him.
"If you ever have to choose," she said softly, "choose them."
He stared at her. "What?" "I don't want to be the reason you lose your family," she continued. "I already feel like an intruder." Malcolm grabbed her hands. "You're my family." She smiled sadly. "Sometimes love isn't enough to protect someone," she said. "Sometimes it just teaches them how to endure." That night, Malcolm realized something terrifying. The woman he loved was learning how to survive pain instead of expecting protection. And that was his fault. It happened during dinner at home. Nothing fancy. Just the two of them. Ariana pushed her food around her plate. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Anything. If we have children, would your mother treat them the same way?" Malcolm opened his mouth. Closed it. He didn't answer. Because he couldn't lie. And Ariana saw the truth in his silence. She nodded slowly. "Okay," she said. "I just needed to know." That was the moment Malcolm understood. This wasn't just about the past anymore. It was about the future. And whether love could survive where respect did not exist. Malcolm didn't sleep that night. Ariana's question replayed over and over in his head, heavier each time. Would your mother treat them the same way? Children. Innocent. Watching. Learning what love looked like by example. By morning, he knew something had to change. He called his parents and asked for a meeting. Not at their mansion. Not at a restaurant. Neutral ground. A private lounge downtown. Veronica arrived dressed in white, composed, offended already. Leonard followed, calm and unreadable. Malcolm didn't sit. "What you did to my wife was unacceptable," he said plainly. Veronica laughed softly. "You're still on that?" "Yes," Malcolm replied. "And here's the boundary. You will never disrespect my wife again. If you do, we're done." The room went cold. Leonard stood slowly. "You don't threaten family." "I'm not threatening," Malcolm said. "I'm choosing." Veronica's face hardened. "Then choose carefully." Malcolm nodded. "I already have." It was the first time he didn't flinch. That night, Ariana listened quietly as Malcolm told her everything. The words. The boundary. The silence that followed. She didn't celebrate. Instead, she asked, "Are you okay?" That question broke him. He sat beside her, exhausted. "I don't know." Ariana leaned into him, but carefully, as if closeness itself needed permission now. "I love you," she said, "but I need to feel safe. Not just physically, emotionally." Malcolm nodded. "I know." And in that moment, he understood something painful. Love without safety is just endurance in disguise. Ariana wasn't weak. She was adapting. And adaptation often looks like withdrawal. Weeks later, an invitation arrived. A family anniversary dinner. Formal. Mandatory. No apology attached. Malcolm didn't open it. He tore it in half and dropped it into the trash. That night, he cooked dinner himself. Burned the rice. Overseasoned the chicken. Ariana laughed for the first time in weeks. "You're terrible at this," she teased. "I know," he said. "But I'm learning." They ate together at their small kitchen table. No chandeliers. No power plays. Just peace. Malcolm reached for her hand. "I can't undo what happened," he said. "But I can make sure it never happens again." Ariana squeezed his hand gently. "That's all I ever wanted," she replied. Outside, The city lights flickered on. Inside, something fragile but real began to heal, not the wound itself, but the space around it. And sometimes, that's how survival starts. The story didn't break loudly. It leaked. A cousin mentioned it at brunch. A friend's wife whispered at a salon. Someone noticed Malcolm no longer attended family events. Someone else noticed Ariana's absence from Veronica's carefully curated photos. Then, one afternoon, a lifestyle blog published a soft, dangerous headline. Power Family Rift. Sources say he chose his wife. Malcolm read it twice. Ariana read it once and closed her phone. "They're turning it into entertainment," she said quietly. Malcolm nodded. "They always do." Veronica called that night, furious. "How dare you let this make us look bad?" she snapped. Malcolm replied calmly, "You embarrassed us first." Silence followed. Not regret. Calculation. That's when Malcolm understood. His mother wasn't hurt. She was exposed. Veronica showed up unannounced 2 weeks later. Designer bag. Perfect hair. Controlled smile. "I came to apologize," she said. Ariana stood frozen in the hallway. Malcolm watched closely. Veronica turned to Ariana. "I'm sorry you felt offended." Ariana inhaled slowly. "That's not an apology," Ariana replied, voice steady. "That's blame-wearing manners." Veronica's smile cracked. "I raised my son," she said sharply. "I deserve respect." Ariana met her gaze. Respect is not demanded. It's demonstrated. The room went silent. Veronica looked at Malcolm, waiting. Waiting for him to correct his wife. Malcolm stepped beside Ariana. "My wife speaks for herself," he said. "And she's right." Veronica picked up her bag. "You've made your choice," she said coldly. "Yes," Malcolm replied. "And this time, I'm not apologizing for it." The door closed behind her. That was the final test. Months passed. The wound didn't disappear. Some nights, Ariana still remembered the sound of food hitting fabric. Some nights, Malcolm replayed the second he froze. But something had changed. They talked now. Honestly. Often. Without fear. They went to therapy. Took trips. Built routines that felt like safety instead of survival. One evening, Ariana said, "I forgive her." Malcolm stiffened. "But forgiveness," she continued, "doesn't mean access." Malcolm nodded, relief washing over him. They weren't rebuilding the past. They were protecting the future. And that mattered more. Malcolm once believed family was unbreakable. Now he knew better. Family, he learned, was not about blood, money, or legacy. It was about who didn't humiliate your partner, who didn't weaponize power, who didn't ask you to betray love to feel accepted. The wound never fully healed. But it taught him something sacred. Love isn't proven by how much pain you endure for family. It's proven by how much harm you refuse to tolerate. And in choosing his wife, Malcolm didn't lose his family. He finally defined it. Life didn't suddenly become perfect. There were no fireworks. No dramatic reconciliation. Just quiet. The kind of quiet that follows emotional storms. Ariana slowly reclaimed herself. She began wearing colors again. Deep blues, warm golds. She hosted small dinners for friends she trusted. She laughed without checking the room first. Malcolm noticed the change in subtle ways. She no longer flinched when his phone rang. She slept deeper. She spoke more freely. But sometimes, when they passed fine dining restaurants, Ariana's smile would fade just a little. Trauma doesn't announce itself. It whispers. Malcolm learned to listen. At a private men's retreat, Malcolm found himself sharing more than he expected. Another man spoke about choosing his parents over his wife, and losing her. A different man spoke about silence destroying his marriage. When it was Malcolm's turn, he didn't mention names. He didn't describe luxury. He just said this. "My mother humiliated my wife." And for a second, I froze. That second almost cost me everything. The room went still. No judgment. Only understanding. Later, one man pulled him aside and said, "You didn't just protect your marriage. You broke a cycle." That stayed with Malcolm. They moved. Not because they had to, but because they wanted a fresh beginning. Their new home wasn't bigger. It wasn't louder. It felt lighter. Ariana decorated slowly, thoughtfully. Every piece had a story. Nothing felt like it was meant to impress anyone else. One evening, as Malcolm washed dishes and Ariana dried them, she said casually, "I feel safe here." He paused. That sentence meant more than any apology ever could. Malcolm wrote a letter to his parents. He never mailed it. In it, he explained the damage, the silence, the cost of power used without love. Then he folded it, placed it in a drawer, and closed it. Some truths are written for release, not response. On the anniversary of the dinner, Ariana cooked a meal at home. Nothing fancy. They sat across from each other at their own table. Ariana smiled and said, "This time, I eat because I'm welcome." Malcolm felt his throat tighten. The wound hadn't disappeared, but it no longer controlled them. Malcolm would never forget that night. The sound, the shock, the shame. But he learned this. Some wounds don't heal to erase pain. They heal to teach boundaries. His family embarrassed his wife. But love taught him how to stand. And in the end, the wound didn't destroy him. It transformed him.